Hi, and welcome to the ArtsyFartzy Club. My name is Mrs. Johnson, and I am so happy that you are here with me today. I really love today's assignment. It's super fun and cute, and I know there's lots of elementary art teachers and elementary classroom teachers that are going to like it too. And if you are a student, I know you're going to enjoy this. It's fun, it's cute, and it's something delicious. Let's talk about donuts. I love donuts. I used to love them when I was little with chocolate frosting and sprinkles, and it was so good. Now I'm more of a bear claw and a coffee kind of gal, but donuts are super fun and delicious. What's not to love? So I found a fun story on Storyline Online. If you haven't checked out their website, please do so. It's so cool. Famous actors read you stories and they animate them and just bring them to life. It's one of my favorite resources. So to inspire our artwork today, I found a book that is read by Chris O'Dowd, and it is called Arnie the Doughnut. It's totally just what you think it's going to be. It's all about Arnie the Doughnut and his adventure being a donut. So I hope you really enjoy it. I'm going to share my screen with you, and I will catch you on the flip side. You got it.
Welcome to Storyline Online, brought to you by the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. I am Chris O'Dowd, and today I'm going to read Arnie the Doughnut, written and illustrated by Laurie Keller. Arnie turned out to be just the kind of donut he'd hoped he'd be. Chocolate covered with bright coloured candy sprinkles.
Look at all my sprinkles. There must be a million of them.
Actually, there were only 135, but I'm not going to spoil it for him.
He was made very early in the morning at the downtown bakery, home of the best donuts around.
Around. Get it?
Arnie was proud to be one of the best. He knew that people all over town made special trips to his bakery to buy donuts of their very own. As Arnie sat on the tray, which had just been placed on the donut case, he took a moment to reflect on the amazing things that had happened to him that morning. 1. Cut into ring. 2. Welcome to Storyline Online, brought to you by the SAG-AFTRA Foundation. I am Chris O'Dowd, and today I'm going to read Arnie the Doughnut, written and illustrated by Laurie Keller. Arnie turned out to be just the kind of donut he'd hoped he'd be. Chocolate covered with bright coloured candy sprinkles.
Look at all my sprinkles. There must be a million of them.
Actually, there were only 135, but I'm not going to spoil it for him.
He was made very early in the morning at the downtown bakery, home of the best donuts around.
Around. Get it?
Arnie was proud to be one of the best. He knew that people all over town made special trips to his bakery to buy donuts of their very own. As Arnie sat on the tray, which had just been placed on the donut case, he took a moment to reflect on the amazing things that had happened to him that morning. 1. Cut into ring. 2. Deep fried.
I'm soaking in boiling grease, but I love it.
3. Cooled.
Your drink, sir. Thank you.
4. Iced.
Who's that handsome donut? That's me.
5. Sprinkled.
Caution, sprinkle area. Must wear safety goggles.
6. Named.
Whatever I named, I'm going to go by Cool Iced D.
Arnie looked around and saw all sorts of donuts sitting nearby.
A cinnamon twist. Donut balls.
Chocolate zebra.
Square. Powdered.
Long John.
Bear claw.
Various muffins.
I'm a muffin.
I'm a different kind of muffin.
He tried to strike up a conversation with an apple fritter on the next tray over, but she didn't seem to want to talk.
It is rather early. Maybe she's not a morning donut.
Arnie supposed. It was 6 a.m. and the baker had just hung the open sign in the window. Arnie was fascinated as he watched the customers stream into the bakery. One by one, donuts were chosen, placed in paper bags, and whisked away with their new owners. Some went by the dozen in giant boxes.
Goodbye.
Arnie yelled to each donut.
Have a great trip. This is so exciting. I wonder who will choose me.
Just then, Arnie looked up and saw a man pointing right at him.
What?
Before he could say another word, he was pulled from the tray and placed in a paper bag of his very own.
Thank you, Mr. Bing. Have a nice day.
Arnie heard the baker say to the man.
Mr. Bing, that's a fine name.
Arnie decided.
I can hardly wait to meet him.
Goodbye, Arnie. We'll miss you.
I should have talked to him while I had the chance.
The ride to Mr. Bing's apartment was a little bumpy. Arnie was grateful for the soft napkin the baker had so thoughtfully placed underneath him in the bag. He'd never ridden a car before, and he wished he could look out the window to see all the sights. But more than anything, he wished he could meet Mr. Bing.
Why does he keep me in this bag?
Arnie wondered. Finally, the car came to a stop, and they were home. Mr. Bing carefully removed Arnie from his paper bag and placed him on a clean, shiny plate.
What a handsome plate.
Arnie said to himself.
I'm not crazy about the design. I prefer a more modern look. But it's nothing a little paint can't fix.
Mr. Bing gently lifted Arnie from his new plate.
Isn't that cute?
Thought Arnie, as he closed his eyes and smiled.
He wants to hold me.
As Arnie relaxed in Mr. Bing's hand, he felt himself moving higher and higher away from his plate. When he opened his eyes to see where he was going, he discovered that he was headed straight for Mr. Bing's open mouth.
What are you doing?
Shouted Arnie. Mr. Bing was stunned. He dropped Arnie back onto the plate.
I was going to eat you,
he replied in shock.
Eat me?
Arnie shrieked, his sprinkles flying everywhere.
Why would you do a thing like that? Do you make a habit of eating all of your house guests?
No, of course not.
So why then would it suddenly occur to you to eat me?
Arnie demanded.
Well, because you're a donut. That's what donuts are for, to eat.
Do you mean to tell me you've done this before?
Yes, I eat a donut every day,
Mr. Bing said sheepishly. Arnie froze. He felt sick, frightened.
I better get out of here before he tries to eat me again.
And angry.
My friends, they've probably all been eaten.
He thought to himself for a moment.
I must put a stop to this right away. I'll call the bakery and warn the others. Whoever's left, that is.
Arnie knew that there was no time to waste, and that he needed to be very sneaky in order to keep his plan from Mr. Bing. He turned to Mr. Bing and said in his sweetest voice,
Excuse me, sir, but I don't believe we've been properly introduced. My name is Arnie.
Hello, Arnie.
Mr. Bing stammered.
I'm Mr. Bing. It's nice to eat you. I mean, to meet you.
Mr. Bing, would you be a dear and allow me to use your telephone?
Arnie asked, extra politely.
Oh, well, okay,
said Mr. Bing, and he handed Arnie the phone. As quickly as he could, Arnie dialed the number of the bakery.
Downtown Bakery, home of the...
Mr. Bakerman!
Arnie frantically whispered.
This is Arnie the Doughnut. Do you remember me? You made me at 5:15 this morning, and I was bought about 20 minutes ago by a man who goes by the name of Mr. Bing.
Yes, Arnie,
the baker answered.
What can I do for you?
Now, I don't want to alarm you, but just moments ago that man tried to eat me! And not only that, he claims to have eaten hundreds of us! I'm going to make a run for it, but I wanted to warn you so that if you see him coming into the bakery again, you can stop him.
Oh, my. Arnie, I thought you understood. That's why I make donuts, for people to eat.
I can't believe it!
Arnie gasped.
Are the other donuts aware of this arrangement?
Well, I think so, the baker said. Let me ask them to make sure.
The baker yelled to the other donuts.
Do you donuts know that you're going to be eaten?
Yeah, we know.
The donut shouted back.
We're delicious. I don't blame them.
Did you hear that, Arnie? The baker asked. Arnie was crushed. The phone dropped from his hand. He'd heard all he needed to hear. Arnie forgot all about his plan to escape. He collapsed back onto the plate, glanced up at Mr. Bing and muttered,
All right, then. Let's get this over with. Go ahead and eat me.
Mr. Bing gazed down at Arnie. I'm not going to eat you, Arnie, he said reassuringly. I just wouldn't feel right about it now.
Really?
Arnie said with a huge sigh of relief.
Well, I'm glad to see that you've come to your senses.
But since I'm not going to eat you, Mr. Bing continued, I'll have to figure out something else to do with you. I've paid good money for you, and I don't want to be wasteful.
Of course not.
Arnie agreed. What we need to do is each make a list of things I can do with you instead of eating you. Between the two of us, I know we'll come up with something.
Good plan, Mr. Bing.
Arnie said.
This will be a breeze. I bet I'm good at lots of stuff.
They both feverishly wrote down their ideas. When they were finished, Mr. Bing asked,
Would you like to read yours first?
Sure thing, Mr. Bing.
Arnie answered.
Things Mr. Bing can do with me instead of eating me. Do you need a ballroom dance partner?
No, I don't dance.
You could use a personal fitness trainer.
I'd get too sweaty.
How about a portrait painter?
Oh, heavens, no.
Would you like me to entertain you at parties? Do not make my brown eyes blue.
I don't like throwing parties.
I could be your chauffeur.
But you can't see over the steering wheel.
I'd make a great bodyguard.
Who could you protect me from? A cookie?
All righty, Mr. Bing. Let's hear what you came up with.
Okie dokie, he replied. I just know you'll like some of these. Things I could do with Arnie instead of eating him. I could use you as a pincushion.
Oh, too painful.
How about an air freshener for my car?
How about not?
Would you like to be a picture frame?
I can't imagine so.
I need a new bowling ball.
Well, don't look at me.
You'd make a fine paperweight.
Boring.
What about a doorstop?
Try again.
But there was nothing else on Mr. Bing's list. They were both completely out of ideas. Arnie and Mr. Bing were exhausted. They felt terribly disappointed. After a few minutes of awkward silence, Mr. Bing finally spoke.
I'm sorry, Arnie, but it's clear that we can't agree on anything for you to do around here. This is difficult for me to say, but I think it would be best if you found another home.
I know,
said Arnie, fighting back tears.
I'll just be on my way then. Is it all right if I keep this napkin to pack up my loose sprinkles?
Of course,
Mr. Bing replied sadly.
As soon as I get a job, I'll pay you back the money you spent on me.
That's not necessary, Arnie.
Arnie shook Mr. Bing's hand and thanked him for his kindness. Mr. Bing opened the door, and as Arnie left, he paused and said,
I guess donuts really are only good for eating, aren't they?
They both waved goodbye, and Arnie was gone. Mr. Bing stood at the window and watched as Arnie walked away. He walked past the flower beds, the mailboxes, and the apartment manager's office.
Is there anything worse than a sad pastry?
He passed the tennis court,
Is that a donut?
the swimming pool,
Yeah, whatever.
and the clubhouse.
Oh my God. Is that a donut?
But when Arnie reached the No Dogs Allowed sign at the end of the driveway, Mr. Bing suddenly came up with a new idea.
Whiteboard!
Arnie, wait up. Arnie!
Yelled Mr. Bing as he ran after him. Arnie turned back and stopped. When Mr. Bing caught up with him, he was out of breath.
I can't believe I didn't think of this earlier.
Mr. Bing panted.
Arnie, I've always wanted a dog. Keep talking, big guy. And could never have one because they're not allowed here. But there's no sign that says no donuts allowed.
Arnie perked up when he realized what Mr. Bing was thinking.
Would you like to take walks and play fetch?
Mr. Bing asked excitedly.
You bet I would.
Can you do tricks like rolling over?
Rolling over? Look at me. I was made for rolling over.
Well then, there's only one thing left to ask. Arnie, will you be my donut dog?
Oh, Mr. Bing, I would love to be your donut dog.
From that moment on, Arnie and Mr. Bing were inseparable. Arnie liked being a donut dog even better than he liked being a donut.
Arf! Arf! Arf!
He went through a short phase of chewing on furniture and barking at the mailman, but after a crash course in obedience school, he graduated first in his class. Everywhere the two of them went, people would stop to pet Arnie. No one had ever seen a donut dog before.
Oh, what a darling man.
What a darling dog.
Arnie and Mr. Bing had so much fun together. Arnie was the best pet Mr. Bing could ever have hoped for, and Mr. Bing was Arnie's best friend. The end. I chose this book because it illustrates that two people who come from very different backgrounds, the eater and the ET, can come together and compromise and decide that together eating doesn't need to take place at all. They can just be friends. Sometimes you're the eater, and sometimes you're the eaten. Thank you for watching Storyline Online. Hope you enjoyed it. Please feel free to check out some of our other terrific stories. Keep reading. Keep watching. Keep eating.
Hi, welcome back. I'm so glad you met me on the other side of the video. What'd you think? I thought that story was just so funny and so cute, and it really made me want to make my own donut. And when I started to think about making this donut, I thought about how we could incorporate some cross-curricular activities with our donut. So I thought, well, I could just make Arnie, but it would be way more fun if I made my own donut. So I designed this little worksheet I wanted to share with you guys. And this is my Arnie the Doughnut worksheet, except I have a space for a character name. And so we're going to create a donut and we're going to name it ourselves. So our donut's going to have its own personality, its own special flavor profile. And then we're going to put it on its own adventure, something different than what happened to Artie, or maybe it's similar being created, or maybe what happens after our donut leaves the bakery. I don't know. We have to really use our imagination. And like I always like to say, your imagination is your only limitation. So this cool little worksheet, that's what it looks like when it's in the black and white. And so it has these sequence words like first this happened, next that happened, then, after, and last. And you can create a whole adventure for your donut. So let's get into making our donut. And I'm going to change up the scene so you get more table, less me. And we're going to talk about some paper choices. Now, I'm going to start with a colored construction paper. And there's lots of different choices you could do, but here's probably the three main ones that you have in your construction paper set. This is manila. There is pink, which would be like strawberry. And then brown, of course, would be a chocolate donut. And You could also use what we call the multicultural construction papers. They have lots of different shades of browns, which would be really cool if you had an entire class with all different kinds of donuts. All right, so I'm going to choose chocolate, and let's dig in. All right, the hardest part is to cut the circle freehand, right? But there's an easier way to do this, and it's starting out with a square. So if you've ever made a, what do we used to call them? A cootie catcher. I don't know, kids still make cootie catchers. But I'll show you that again. You take your far corner and you fold it down so that you're creating a straight vertical line here, and that this edge of the paper, so this edge of the paper is going to completely line up with the bottom edge of your paper. And you should have a nice pointed here. It shouldn't fold, like weird, like overlap onto itself. It should be a nice point, okay? And then you have a rectangle shape here, which I'm going to then cut off. So my thumb goes in the little hole, my finger goes in the big hole, and my thumb is always pointed straight up at the ceiling. That's super important so that I can cut comfortably. My arm or my hand, scissors, are pointed away from my body. All those things are pointed away from my body because I don't want to cut like this. This is not comfortable. This is not a good way to cut. Point away. We're safe. We're able to cut more freely. Don't throw this away. It's really important. Okay. We're going to set that aside. And if I opened up my donut, my paper, it will have a perfect square. Okay. Now, here's my first trick. I don't want my paper really all folded up a lot. So don't fold your paper yet if you're following along. I'm going to touch the ends together, but not make a crease. I am going to just pinch this spot down here, but not make a fold all the way across because I want my paper to stay nice. Now this is going to be the center of your donut. And the trick to cutting this, because it's a fold and a fold, so a fold on top of a fold, it is 1/4 of a circle. Okay. So I am going to cut from here, and I want my distance to be about the same when I meet the edge on the other side. So let me show you what I mean. I hope that makes sense. So I'm cutting curve, 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 turning the paper with my left hand, and I am going to make it about the same size distance on the other side. So if I did it correctly, this size and this size should be about the same. That's scrap. I don't need that. And I open this up to see if I did it correctly. Pretty close. It's a little bit of a squarish circle. That can happen because I didn't cut it as open as I wanted, but I can always come in and snip a little bit. Just a tiny, tiny bit, guys. Don't get crazy. You might regret it. Or I could have just left it. It really was fine. But I wanted to show you, if that happens, what you could do. Okay. See how that tiny those little slivers are that I cut? Not big at all. Okay. If you cut too much, you'll regret it. All right. It's a little more circular. I could have done it more on this one if I wanted. I'm going to let it go. All right. So from here to there, so the center of this line to the center of that line, that's what I'm trying to, this is my start, this is my end. That's what I'm going for. I am going to cut a curved line, And if I add all of these curved lines together as they go all the way around, they should form a circle. So let's see if we can do this together. It's trickier on this big piece of paper. I love doing that technique to cut little circles, which we'll talk about more later. For some reason, the smaller the paper, the easier it is, because you got to have this goal getting to that other side. Very subtle curve, guys. You always can come back and cut more, but if you cut too much, it's gone. You can't take it back, okay? So curve, curve, curve. And last but not least, looking at what I'm doing, but I'm also, I look at the end of where I'm going. So I check how my hand's doing, but then I'm looking at my destination. That's where I want those scissors pointed. Boom. Okay. All right, let's see how I did. Okay, the scraps are scraps. We don't need those. Bye-bye. Okay. That's my donut in general. Now, I said we needed this piece of paper. This is going to be a very important piece of paper. I am going to cut about, what is that? 1.5 inches off. Does not have to be an exact science, but about that much off. And now I'm going to cut lengthwise to make these thin, but not too thin, not skinny. Skinny, not thin. I don't know. I'm going to make some lines. These lines are going to help me make the legs and arms and hands and feet. And I believe I need 2 more. Let's see. Trying to make them all about the same thickness. And if you really wanted to, you could use a ruler to draw them out. You could even measure, but that's like a next level thing that I don't think is necessary. Okay, I'm going to set that aside. I don't think I'll need it, but just in case of an emergency. All right, I am going to take one of these and have them meet together at the ends. Hold it tight and put my scissors in the middle and snip. That should give me 2 equal length pieces. Okay, I'm going to do that again. So meet the ends meet. Put in my scissors and the 2 equal pieces. You could fold it in half, but this way I don't even have to worry about folding it perfect or anything. Okay, and then now this one, I'm going to cut it in half again. Okay. Okay, perfect. Now I'm going to, and then don't lose this piece. You do need this piece. It's important. So I'm going to kind of move these aside so that my donut is in the center so you can see what I'm doing. All right. Here we go. When I glue, I like to glue on the object I am going to glue down, not guessing where, or gooping a big spot and then putting down the glue. So I'm putting it on the end, and I am going to put this kind of where I think it's going to be equal distant on each side. This is going to be his legs or her legs, because it doesn't have to be an Arnie. It can be a Arnita. And then I'm going to do that again for the arm slightly above the halfway mark. And again on the other side, so it matches. Okay, now the toes are pretty easy. They're just going to both go in the same direction, just like Arnie. The hands get a little bit trickier. Here we go. So the arm is already going to be my thumb is attached to my arm. And then I'm going to have these three pieces be my fingers. So that being said, I want this one to be shorter. I want it to be shorter from where I connect it to there, from there to the end of my finger. Okay. And then I'm going to repeat that right over top. So where, I wish I could zoom in. You see it better, even better that way? Not really. Yeah, ooh, can you see that? Okay, now I'm going to overlap right where I glued the first one, and I'm going to fan it out a little bit so that the tip, they don't overlap. I want to see each individual finger. All right, let's raise that up again. Okay, so now you see how that's kind of angled different. And we're going to do that one more time. So right where I started, and make it pivot. Pivot. And there you go. Oh, and raise it up. There you go. So you see how that one's short, and then those all meet right here at this little point, and then they fan kind of out. Okay, and then I got to do it again on the other side so that they match. So about the same length is my goal. One, two, and three. Okay. That's my donut body. That's it. That's the basic step. I'm done with my gluing. I'm done with my cutting. The rest is paint and fun. Oh, I'm not done. I'm not done. I spoofed. I spoofed at you. Okay. There is another step of cutting, but it's while the paint is drying. So we're still going to go on. Next, we will be doing the painting, and then we'll worry about cutting something else. See what I did there? Okay. So I really recommend for tempera paint is to put a little bit of white in there, because it's kind of translucent. It's kind of liquidy sometimes. And so I put a little bit of white into my paint. Now, your donut can have any kind of frosting you want it to have on it. Okay. Let me try that again. I don't want to show my plate. Your donut can have any kind of frosting you want. Chocolate frosting, vanilla frosting, strawberry frosting, purple frosting, whatever frosting you want your frosting to be, and whatever, if you're a teacher, whatever you happen to have is what you can provide. Now, I'm using a 1-inch brush. I think a thicker brush would make it easier for the kids to make it look smooth, and but use what you have. So, but a nice flat end brush would be better. Now I'm going to paint right around where my feet and the arms are glued down. I'm actually, that's the spot I'm not going to go into. And then I just kind of flow. I just let my paintbrush glide along. I don't want to go to the edge of my paper. I want it to look like the frosting got slobbed on and melted on top of my donut, but not off my donut. Okay. And then I can start coming in. Once again, like I just said with the cutting, you can always go closer to your edge, but once you get, too far, you can't take it back. There. It doesn't have to be symmetrical. It's organic, right? It's just frosting. However it melted. Let it flow. Now, I do recommend that you let your paint dry a little bit and then do a second layer. Because like I said, the tempera paint is a little translucent sometimes. It depends on what brand you have. How long you've had it. Sometimes it dries out as it gets older. It will thicken up a little bit. Okay, but that white will help it to fill in a little bit. So through the magic of time, I'm going to fast forward to my next step. But before I do that, I want to say one thing. So let's pretend I did my 2 layers of paint here. I'm going to grab a little bit of white before my paint dries, and I'm going to just do kind of a highlight. I want it to blend in with my wet paint, just like a little highlight here and here. Just like it's being shined on. Okay, so through the magic of television, we are now here with a dry project, and I'm going to add my details. So now my details are the sprinkles, okay? And they can be, once again, whatever color you want it to be. So I will recommend adding a little dab of white to whatever color paint that you have to try to make it kind of in the same tone, right, as you're working with. And I am going to use a popsicle stick. Now, the bigger the popsicle stick, probably the easier this step is, but you can just drag your popsicle stick to make your, what's it called? Sprinkle. So sprinkle. See how it makes a nice line? I can even roll it. Really wish I had the bigger popsicle sticks, but for whatever reason in my art studio, I don't have them. And I thought I did. I must have used them all up. I would dab it normally. If I dab, they're just little. A little popsicle stick is just kind of little for this project. So I could drag it, roll it. Now, you are the artist, so you decide how many million, gajillion, sprinkles do I need on my character? More is more fun. It's supposed to be an art project in the end, and it's supposed to be a good time. So I say go for it. Get creative. Make sure you keep loading up. And then after you've done a bunch, change up your color. Do them in different directions, so that's a must. I'm going to go back. If I see too much of the original paint showing through, it's not a good sprinkle. It makes me not happy. All right. I think I might do one more color of sprinkle. Why? Because I can. And it's more fun that way. Now, other than doing popsicle sticks, you can also use the end of a paintbrush. And that will make more of a dot. You could use pom-poms. You could use glue and pipe cleaners and cut them up into little sprinkles and like glue them on. I mean, once again, your imagination is your only limitation. So I could take the end of a paintbrush and do sprinkle dot. Sequins. That'd be cool. I kind of like the idea of the pom-poms and the pipe cleaners, but I wanted this to be something that most everyone would have on hand. No worries. Okay, almost done. Like one or two more. Why not? There, and anywhere feeling a little underdressed. Let's see. I'll do one out here. One out here. Okay. So once I have that and I feel happy with that, I'm going to set that aside. Again, I'm going to let that dry while I am making my last pieces. So I accidentally spilled a little bit of water on my brown paper, which is a little sad, but it's going to be okay. And then the next thing I need are my 2-inch by 2-inch white squares. Okay, I'm going to have those together. I can do this two different ways. I could just freehand cut, which is what I did originally, or I could fold it in half and cut the shape after I fold it in half. So it will have a crease in it though. And I was trying to kind of avoid that. So it's up to you. You have to decide as the artist what you want your mouth to look like. Do you want it to be perfectly symmetrical? Then this is the way to go. Okay. And when I open it, I've got a nice, perfectly symmetrical mouth. Or I just cut one freehand. And so when I look at it, this side's a little bit thicker than that side, and yada, yada. Actually kind of like this one more. But if you feel like you're a little nervous about making your shape, then doing that half a mouth with a curved line and a curved line to make kind of like a sort of really elongated shark fin. Okay, that's another way to go about it. All right, now remember how I was saying I like cutting circles out of little squares? We're going to do another circle. So I have my two squares. They're together. And it's that same idea. So I kind of blew through this with the other one, but thumb goes in the little hole, finger in the big hole. Thumb is pointed straight up at the ceiling. I'm going to start halfway on the square, and I'm going to the other halfway. Cutting, 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 cutting. Boom. Keep going, curve, curve, curve. Notice how this hand's doing all the work. My left hand does all the turning. My right hand just starts to squeeze. And then last but not least, we've made it this far. We're going to do it, people. Turn, 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 turn. Bam. Okay. You can always touch up if you see any little bumps, like I might come back and touch that up. I'm actually not that worried about it, but I would have two eyes then. All right. Let's put my scraps out of the way. Plate is out of the way. I've got a mouth and two eyes and my lovely glue stick. You don't have to use a glue stick. You could use Elmer's, but I like glue sticks because they dry quickly, giving us a nice fast result. And I don't have to worry about my friends making quite as much of a mess. All right, I'm going to glue onto the eyeball, the bottom half mostly. Okay. And I'm going to place it near the top. But so the glue part is toward the bottom. The not as glued part is toward the top. I'm going to find a spot. Oh, no. I just got paint on my finger. Well, guess where his little pupil's going to go? Right there. Reasons we should let it dry, people. Mrs. Johnson's trying to rush so you can see it live. Okay. Can I cover that up? Why, yes. Don't mind if I do. Okay. So now I'm going to glue on my mouth. Glue, glue, glue. And then decide where you want it to be. It can go off to the side. It could be like this. It could have been a frown. Maybe my donut's having a bad day. Okay. Shazam. And last but not least, I'm going to color in the pupils on my eye. So a nice permanent marker is always my favorite. This one's a big one, but you don't have to use that big of one. Let me test it just to make sure. You never know when I'm grabbing something out of the marker box if it works. All right. And I'm going to go ahead and make a couple of eyeballs. Now, you want your eyeballs or pupils to be in the general same direction. So I put them at the top left. They both should be at the top left. If you have one going one way and one going the other way, then they look cross-eyed. They could look a little crazy. You could do that. Maybe your donut is a little loopy. I don't know. I see that my mouth is peeling off, so I'm going to put a little bit more glue at the end. Stay down, mouth. Okay. Let's try that again. Boop. All right. And I made this pupil a little bit bigger. Not very even though. Come on, pupil. Come on, pupil. Round out. There you go. And make this one a little bit bigger to match. One more time, round. There, about the same size. All right. And there's my donut. So let's see if I can do this project. Let's see. I've got my worksheet. Go over scissors. Here comes something a little more cool. Okay. So, wow. Mrs. Johnson got a really messy table. You're not supposed to see that, how messy I am. Okay. So now I'm going to look at my art and I'm going to go, what is my character's name? And going to name my donut Percy. And my flavor, Percy's flavor is chocolate with yellow frosting. I should write a little bit smaller. Getting a little crazy there, Mrs. Johnson. Okay. So first, Percy was placed in a box with his 12 other brothers and sisters. Okay, and I even had another line to spare. So first he was placed in a box with his 12 other brothers and sisters. Did you guys know that? Did you notice how many donuts are in the box? If he was placed in with his 12 other brothers and sisters, so 12 plus 1 is 13. And 13, fun fact, is a baker's dozen. So if you go to the store and you say, hey, I'd like a baker's dozen, they throw in a 13th one for you, just for fun. Okay. And next, the lid shut. And the box shook as the baker took it out to the delivery truck. I was debating, is that going to be a truck or a van? Truck, period. Okay. So first, Percy was placed in a box with his 12 other brothers and sisters. Next, the lid shut and the box shook as the baker took it out to the delivery truck. And then I'm not going to tell you what happens because I want you to think of your own ideas. Be creative. What happens to your donut? Are you describing how it's being made? Are you describing what happens after it leaves the bakery? Maybe something happens at the bakery. Could you imagine if it fell on the floor or what? Your imagination is your only limitation. Once again, my name is Mrs. Johnson. I am so happy that you are here with me today. I hope you really enjoyed this art project. I think these little guys are just absolutely adorable. They are cute enough to eat. delicious, right? So in case you didn't know, if this is your first time on a video with me, you now are officially an ArtsyFartzy Club member. Yay! Congratulations. And in case you haven't ever seen me before, I do one of these story lessons every week. And I also go live on Saturday mornings at 11 a.m. Eastern. So be sure to subscribe so you get a reminder, click that bell, and we can see each other live. You can give me comments and questions. I would love to hear from you. So that's it, folks. Until I see you again, I hope you are absolutely art-tastic.